Welcome to Insightful Player TV. My name is Chrissy Carew, and I'm a personal and business coach and the founder of Insightful Player. We're in for a really good treat tonight. We have Chris Brown. Chris Draft, my goodness. I was just talking to Jason Brown, so that must have been why I slipped there. Chris Draft is coming on tonight. He's amazing. And before I introduce him, I want to share a resource I just heard about. It's FamilyMovieNight.com. This Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern, there's a really inspiring movie on NBC called Tackling the Past. It's an inspiring NFL movie, and I highly recommend that you check it out. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to get the popcorn going, and it's always good to have some inspiring movies where everyone in the family can get together and watch it. And so it's this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern on NBC. So, while we're waiting for our guest, I want to tell you a little bit about Insightful Player. Insightful Player is a bold movement of hope where we feature inspiring stories and programs about NFL players who are excellent role models. These role models have a story to tell. They've all been through some amazing obstacles and have become better for it. And they really want to inspire our youth and really help them learn to really respect and appreciate the value of adversity and to really get in touch with what's in their heart and in their dreams and really go after it and really create the life that they really want. And they are just so committed to getting their message out. They're all really wonderful guys. They're humble, they're high integrity, they're under the radar, and there are many more role models in the NFL than I ever knew about. And so I'm really excited to bring them to you. And you can also see their abbreviated versions of their stories on insightfulplayer.com. And just in a couple of weeks, we will have Insightful Player book is coming out, and it's listed on Amazon.com. And if you go to Amazon.com and type in Insightful Player, you'll find it. And it's loaded with 32 inspiring stories of hope. And I see our wonderful guest is here, Chris Draft. And I am just going to turn his volume up and just introduce him. Just want to make sure he can hear me before I introduce Chris. Can you hear me, Chris? Excellent, excellent. Well, Chris Draft is a former NFL player who played for 7 teams, and he's a 13-year vet. I affectionately refer to him as the Mother Teresa of the NFL because it's incredible how much he contributes to others and how he inspires others to contribute to others. He's an exceptional role model. He went to Stanford. He's an author of a book. Do you want to play catch? It's a children's book, and he can tell you about that. He's the founder of the Chris Draft Family Foundation, and they have a huge impact on community projects that support youth, families, schools, civic groups, and health awareness organizations. Chris is also dedicated and very involved in a White House initiative called Let's Read, Let's Move. And he's traveling across the country as we speak in partnering with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. And if you think that's enough, he's an NFL ambassador, and he spearheads the Play 60, which we've seen, a lot of us have seen ads about on the NFL sites and while we're on the ads during the games. He'll have to tell us more about that. And he's received so many awards I can't mention them. I'll be here all night. He's been honored by his peers, the NFL industry, the communities that he's lived and played in, and again, he's Mother Teresa of the NFL. He's received so many service awards, and he's someone that's been given so many gifts, and because he recognizes that in a very humble way, he's very committed and dedicated to working on his gifts every day and sharing them with all of you. That's right. He spends his life sharing his gifts with all of you. And he's going to inspire you tonight. He's inspired me. I am so honored to have Chris Draft on the Insightful Player team. So, welcome, Chris. You walk on water, right? Well, we have so much to talk about tonight. My goodness, we have so many things to talk about. Everything you're involved in now. But I thought it would be a great place to start is, where your beginnings, so we can create a context and people can really get a real peek at your road to the NFL and, where you came from. So you have so many great stories from your childhood, growing up in Anaheim, and you have such great parents for role models, which is really fortunate. Not everyone has that, and that's another reason why I see you out there contributing, because you recognize that people don't have the role models that you had with your wonderful parents. And again, I just sense this tremendous responsibility for you to fill that void, and that's what you're doing all over the place. So why don't you share a couple of stories about growing up in Anaheim, California. One that I got the biggest kick out of is when your father was coaching your brother's soccer team when you were only 4, your older brother, and you wanted to be on that team. They got permission to put you on, and why don't you tell that story, because that's really an interesting story. How Dad and Mom set you straight at 4. Right. I remember you saying that you're all about, you're either in or you're not, and you give it your all, and that's all there is to it. And you mentioned something earlier that a lot of us fans are oblivious as the road to the NFL and what it took you guys to get there. And that a lot of people just think, oh yeah, they just walk right in on the field and they have this life of O'Reilly, and it's not so at all. And I think, you talk about, you're someone that's so dedicated, you graduated from Stanford, and I remember you talking about how you had to really hit the books when you reached the NFL, almost more than you did when you were in college as an economics major. Can you say a little bit about that? Wow. Right. Wow. That's amazing. And I know a lot of you guys, in addition to that, is you have to bring all that home with you. You know, watch film and study the playbook. So when you go home, you're still working. And I know you, someone who contributes so much to others. Tuesdays being the day off, I know you're out there in the community giving of yourself. I don't know where you get all that energy, Chris Draft. Every time I talk to you, I want to take a nap afterwards. When I hear, and I'm not a napper, because you just give so much. Right. Right, you certainly did that, and and that reminds me of another story. How your parents really drilled this in, to really widen your perspective and take responsibility for whatever was in front of you. Like walking down the street, when you'd see trash, they'd say, "Go pick that up," and you're like, "What?" Can you tell them a little bit about that? Because that was an interesting story as well. Hmm. Right, right, and so do you attribute, that kind of training with your parents to, developing the stamina and resilience? Like back when you were really young, you had experience with that whole stereotypes, black male, making erroneous assumptions about who you were. Someone that's going to get into fights. They're not going to do well in school. I mean, that's incredible. The lessons your parents taught you about, the results trump the stereotypes every time. Performance rather. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that is so inspiring. So that's pretty incredible for a young kid to be able to cling to that and to go through that. So was it a vision? I mean, how did you define a man? What was it, Chris, that really kept you going? Because that does take times, like you said, to earn that respect. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So did you have any other role models in your life outside of your family that you aspired to be like? Wow, that's wow, that's great. It's so great. I wish every kid had that, to have all that positive influence in their lives, and that's what you're out giving to those kids now. I know, with all the work that you've done in your life with the Chris Draft Foundation, and being able to. One of the things that really impressed me, one of the many things, is that how you talk to these kids in the inner city, these underserved kids, and you talk to them and don't expect the world to be cheerleaders for you. You need to find that within, and that has been that's an amazing message for a child to hear. And most adults don't get that, Chris. Because everyone's always looking for validation and acknowledgement, because none of us get enough of it in the world, none of us. And so how do the kids, that you talk to in the inner cities, how do they respond to that message? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh. That's great. So what they didn't have, they gave back. And that's often the case, is what we didn't get, we give back to the world. And if we're guided to make those right choices, which is really great. And as adults, I think we all need to put our antennas up, because sometimes kids don't know enough to even talk about what they want, And, that's something I'm really passionate about, is to promote mentorship throughout the world, for people to start paying attention to the kids in the neighborhood that are just hanging around doing nothing, with holding their heads down and, don't seem like they have a lot of life in them. We got to really watch out for those kids, don't we? Right, absolutely, and that's another thing you do with the kids, is that you really empower them by challenging them to, and that you expect greatness, and I bet you some of these kids never even heard that before, or thought that about themselves. Is that what you've been experienced with these kids you've been working with? Right. Everybody, don't you love his passion? Isn't he amazing? We got to get you on the world stage. That's for sure. And speaking of which, challenging, to push further, your father did that when you were 10 on your first football team, when you were really had that, you were so determined to really show everybody your stuff and that you could do it, and boy, you got beat up physically, you were sore. What did your dad say about that? What was the message he gave you about that? Right, right. Well, that's great. Well, that's something you're good at, anyways. Gratitude, and so that's really good. And the fact that your father challenged you, you're going back out there tomorrow, and so from the stories that you share with the children, as well as from your which relate to your own personal life, is I bet you that was empowering because you pushed yourself further than you thought you were capable. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. I think we all need to, challenge each other and become more accountable. I think those are really, really, really great points. And along the road, you had another challenge back when you were at Stanford. Was it a junior? When the asthma showed up. You have severe asthma, and you weren't sure if you were going to be able to play anymore. Can you talk a little bit about that? 'Cause that's an incredible story as well, Chris. Oh, it's awful. Still? Mm-hmm. Wow. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That's amazing. And you have to really watch your health all the time. That's amazing. Right, right. Right, acceptance. That's another big piece. Whatever obstacles come your way, or, if you accept it, then you can work with it, and, it can work for you as well. So that's a really good point. And the Chris Draft Family Foundation, you've done a lot of work with asthma and so many other things. Can you talk about the Chris Draft Foundation? Everyone has to go to this website, chrisdraftfamilyfoundation.org. You won't believe all the things this guy is doing in his foundation. And there's some great videos to watch, and there's so many amazing programs. Can you talk to us about that, Chris? Some of your programs? Wow, you're a great life coach. It's so important, that by giving back like that is the highest level of fulfillment. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And, everyone, please go to the chrisdraftfamilyfoundation.org. You'll be very inspired. There's lots of videos, there's lots of stories, there are lots of tips, and I think you'll really, really enjoy it. And no ifs, ands, or buts. And I think another thing that would be interesting for our viewers to hear about is your transition out of the NFL. I know that can be really tough for a lot of players. Can you talk to us about your transition? You have so many activities. I bet. No, right, right, right. You don't definitely need those hits. Well, you are doing a lot of running a lot of programs right now. I mean, what does it mean to be an NFL ambassador for the Play 60? Can you share us a little bit about that? That's fascinating. Right, yeah, it's like putting everything together, integrating, versus having everything segmented and competing. The integration is so important with the balance. Um, and I saw a great video. I went to your website again, and let's read, let's move, and it was the first day of summer, and getting the kids to read books over the summer, and you've been trucking all around the country to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Can you tell us about that? That's really fascinating. Yeah, that whole community thing with you. I mean, about paying it forward. You work with these kids, and you give them some wonderful tools, and you get them to open their eyes and expand their perspective about sharing what they learn. It is fascinating. It can go viral. I mean, I saw the videos of those kids jumping up and down. They were so excited, about reading 5 books, and they were really little kids. That's a wonderful thing you're doing for our youth, Chris. It's amazing. Right. Right, right. And then you have your book, Do You Want to Play Catch? And I know the proceeds go to the Chris Draft Family Foundation. That's a really fascinating book. We need to get that up on the Insightful Player website, by the way. I'll have to talk to Jeremy. Oh, you have it. Excellent. Excellent. I have a picture of you holding it. Excellent. Hold it back just a little bit so we can see. I think we need to. All right, we'll have to get that on Insightful Player website. Amazing. You have some really key points that continue to go through all the projects you're working on. It's amazing. The whole balance thing, the community, serving others, you start something, you finish it. I mean, you have some really, really, really good points to share with not just kids, but we adults as well, of all ages. And the one thing we haven't talked about, and I would love to learn about the Chris Draft, the professional speaker. Can you tell us what you're doing with that? Wow. We'll have to talk about that so we can help you get some more gigs, because we got to get your messages out to adults as well. It's very important. People need to hear that. We need to be reminded. Everyone's so isolated, and your messages of community and supporting is just so empowering and challenging yourself to push and start what you finish and share, pay forward. I mean, there can really change lives. Really, if someone just took one of your principles, that could dramatically make a huge difference in their life. So have I missed anything tonight? Right, and and it's great. Again, I just love how you yeah, and Chris might be coming back on a regular basis, which we would love, because you have so much to share, and you have so many great stories and some key principles that if we all adopted, just one of them would really make a difference in our lives. So do you think we got it all tonight so far for our first visit with you? Do you have any parting words that you'd like to share? The gratitude. You're right. And decide to love it, right? Just decide to love the day. Well, thank you so much, Chris. Thank you. I really appreciate your spunk and your passion, and we need to get you on the world stage. Every day. To lift the spirit of All right, we'll have you back again. We'll talk about setting something up again very soon. And I want to bless you and everyone. It was just so great to have Chris here, and I'm so glad you got to meet him for the first time, because he will be back, because he has so many messages to share. And go to insightfulplayer.com and look at his story and look at his guiding principles. And if you could look at his guiding principles, that's something you could just tack up on your refrigerator or on a whiteboard or in your bathroom mirror, and I think it would really get you going every day and really help you expand your perspective. So we'll have him back. And Chris, thanks again. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And next week we're going to have Kevin Riley back, and he is going to share his story. His career ended early at the NFL because he had cancer, and he lost his shoulder, his arm, and several ribs. And he has one of those amazing get up and go attitudes. And you two would really make good friends, I think. If I hope to introduce you sometime soon, Chris. I think he'd really appreciate you as well. So everybody have a great week. And go ahead. Yes, and so maybe you can leave our viewers with a challenge tonight. What would you like to leave our viewers with? Do you have a Chris Draft challenge, empowering challenge? Wow, that's great tip. The quality of your relationships equals the quality of your life. No ifs, ands, or buts. So with those words, we'll sign off, and everyone have a great week, and just enjoy and love up all the people in your life. Thanks again. Have a great night. And thank you, Chris. Good night.